Shanti Shanti Om Shanti 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 Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti. Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
What is it that you came here to do? You were sent with a mission, although you may not remember. Among the many things you have to do is your soul's purpose, Sometimes it's clear. Sometimes it's cryptic. Always truth. Illuminate the niche inside and see the truth. Wipe away the cobwebs if you need to, and hang on. Let it shine through you, and don't let fear stop you from what you came here to do. So we are here by divine appointment with a purpose, with direction. We are here to live life and to live it abundantly. To allow ourselves the opportunity to listen to the guidance of our Divine Mother and our Divine Father. We may feel that our Earth Father was not all that we wanted. And that's all right. We have all that we need. We may feel like we want more. And the truth is, there is enough. We feel the love of the divine. And I invite you to feel the love of the angels as they move through this room, blessing us and touching us, reminding us that we are here for divine purpose. Divine purpose. So I invite you to go to that still small voice that is within. Go within, shut the door on the closet, and listen. For there is your guidance. There is your truth. There is. Listening with gratitude. Receiving with gratitude. Accepting. Accepting God's love with ease and grace. Allowing ourselves the gentleness of the day. from the place of gentleness. We choose to go forward. In the divine light and love of the one presence. Celebrating the oneness and the wholeness. Say amen. Amen. It's been a while since we've had the train. Yes, the train blowing the horn. And so now we have special music by the Unity Singers. And we're so very blessed to have them. Bless you.
Okay, we'll do a prayer for rain. The sun falls down upon the parched earth. The dusty winds begin to blow. The fields are calling for the skies to burn. Clouds and make the raindrops grow. Just then those clouds began to cry. There comes a crashing in the sky. Well, it's raining on the fields today, yeah. The withered wheat does slowly raise, and now the bounty has been saved. It's raining on the fields today. She gives what she can give, and we are blessed as we circle around the sun. We sing our praise for all her precious gifts, and in each drop we feel her love. Swing low, sweet clouds of blessed sky. They bring the promise of new life. Well, it's raining on the fields today. Slowly raise, and now the mountain has been saved. Well, it's raining on the fields today. Well, it's raining on the fields today. The withered wheat does slowly raise, and now that the mountain has been saved, well, it's raining the fields, raining on the fields, raining on the fields today.
I'm counting on that rain coming down softly today by the time I get home. What do you say? Can we all hold for that? I'm so ready. So ready. Good morning. Happy Father's Day. I am Reverend Sondra von Gyllenband, and I am filled and renewed after a week at the People's Convention at Olathe, Kansas, very close to Unity Village. It was indeed a wonderful experience. I've yet to go to one that's been bad, by the way, so it will be happening next June. I invite you to mark your calendar, look on the Unity website and and get the dates and mark them down, because it is the People's Convention, and it'd be great if we could get a bus together and all go up. What do y'all say? Y'all want to go? Yeah, right. Good. All right. Well, it is Father's Day, and I thought, what better and more appropriate story from the Bible than that one that we so well know about the prodigal son. Does everybody know the prodigal son, story about the prodigal son? And so I asked in the first service, so what do you think about when you think of the prodigal son? And they all said, oh, coming home, having gone out and need to come back, and forgiveness and love. And I go, you remember there's a second son here. There's a second son. And there's the father. There's the father that welcomed that first son back. But so often we spend our time thinking of that one that demanded his inheritance, received it, and went out and did his thing and spent all of his money. And then he came back, and from a distance, his father, looking out over the field, saw him and ran to meet him and greet him. His father was still loving him, even though he chose to do this. Now, if it had been my father, there might have been something like, well, you made your bed, now you're going to lie in it, or something about you're going to pay. But this father loved so much that he said, come on back. Come on back. And then there's the second brother, that older brother, who said, wait, what's the deal? I've been here slaving, working, slaving, and he's been out spending money, and I haven't gotten anything. Sometimes we're that way, right? We're like, oh, they got it all. We haven't gotten our part. No, there's a father who keeps loving. And so the important piece for us to see in this story is not that one went away and spent all of his money and the other one stayed and wanted more. The important piece is to recognize that the divine Father loves us. That creative energy of the universe loves us and wants the highest and the best for us. Always. Always. It's easy to love our kids when they're making the right choices and doing what we'd want. And it's a little tougher when they're out there on the fringes a little bit, maybe making choices that we don't particularly like. Just think about this father, always waiting, always looking, always watching out for the son that went away. Think about that for you. Think about the fact that you can't get away from the divine presence of God. Whatever name you use, you can't get away from it. It's always there looking for you, always there waiting for you, always available to you. Always available. And you don't have to be a slave to God. For this older son felt like he was doing everything right. How many many of you always want to do everything right so that people will love you? But that wasn't it. It was always there for him to have. He wasn't having to do something special. He was loved. He wasn't able to receive his Father's blessing. Anybody ever have blessings flowing your way and you find it difficult to receive them? Okay, there's a few hands that are reluctantly going up. We can give up that place where we're trying so hard, and we can give up that place where we need to rebel, and we can relax and begin to receive the love that is ours, the love that is always there. There was a young boy in class, and he was drawing a picture, and the teacher walked by, and he looked over him, said, "What are you drawing there?" It was one of those you couldn't tell. And the young man said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." And the teacher said, "Well, we don't know what God looks like." And the young boy said, "Well, we will as soon as I get finished with my picture." We will. So often we forget to look. We forget to receive. We forget to see what is right in front of our face, the goodness and the grace. So, Pat, yes, thank you. And if you would go on to the next one, please. And the next one. So, it may have looked like this as the prodigal son, tethered and weary, came home with a father with outreached arms, receiving him. May have looked that way. It sometimes feels that way when we allow ourselves to come home to God, or when we've been out a bit and maybe not in church, and we suddenly come home and go, all right, yeah, this feels good. Next one, Pat. So I've been thinking a lot about faith. And we talk about us having faith and walking out in faith and stepping out in faith and holding faith. But I want you to think about for a moment that creative energy of God. That creative energy of God had enough faith in us, had enough faith in the creative energy to give us free will. God is filled with faith in us. Can you receive that? Can you receive that what you're doing, where you're going, when you're listening to the divine within, to have the faith to step out? So at Unity Village, they have a number of lights going down a pathway. And those lights don't come on until you're right there. So if you're walking on the sidewalk, you'll see darkness ahead. But as you step out, the light comes on. And I think that's the way it is with us. If we really know that we're in this divine flow with God, in this creative energy, that God has faith in us, that God has the conviction and the expectancy to believe that we can do it, that light comes on just as we need it, so we can step out to the next step, even in the darkness. And it is with understanding and realization and compassion for ourselves and others. So many people in the first service said that for them, the prodigal son was about forgiveness. And I like to say, and kind of shake it up a little bit, that God doesn't forgive. God doesn't forgive because God doesn't need to forgive. God is love. God is only love. God is the energy of love. God is love in action. So for us, forgiveness comes from within our hearts, our minds. Comes from within that place where we become willing to get out of our head into our heart, to get out of our thinking into the knowing, to feel the presence of the divine, to be in that place. So we have a greater understanding, a greater realization, greater compassion for ourselves as well as others. You can move on, Pat. And we do that with wisdom. It's important that we use our wisdom in this journey that we go on, and that we do so with judgment and discernment. You know, discernment is an important key to making decisions. Discernment lets us know if we're listening to the divine or if we're listening to the ego self that wants us to go astray. And there is that wonderful power of release, of forgiveness for ourselves and others. So this is a true story. There was a man, he was a judge. He had a son who had an addiction. And his son had been to many rehabs and was not doing very well. One night, in the midst of a high, he took his guitar and he beat his father in the face and broke every bone in his father's face. And the father spent 3 months in the hospital being repaired. Needless to say, the son went to jail. The son went to jail, and the father, who had been so loving and trying to keep the son on the path, continued to visit with him and continued to hold for him and continued to love him. And after about 3 years, he realized that the young man had gotten what he had done. He'd gotten sober. He got into a 12-step program in prison. He had made amends, and he wanted to come home. And the judge went to another judge and said, "My son has it. I'm ready for him to come home. He can come home now." I think that takes a lot. What do you think? But there was a love and a knowing. So this is one of those pieces that I feel always it's important to say, is that he knew it. He didn't think it. He did not think, "Oh, I think my son's got it," or "I love my son, so I'm going to let him come home because I love him." He knew that his son had a spiritual awakening and had been changed. He knew his son had had a conversion. So please, it's important for us to recognize the difference between wanting it to be and knowing it to be. I had a son, went to prison. I'd always told my kids, "Don't call me from jail. And call me before, but don't call me from jail. If you get there, you get yourself out." So my son went to jail, and he knew better than to call me. He did ask his lawyer to call me in hopes that something could happen. I didn't feel it necessary to take charge in that event, and it wasn't until the door locked that he had a conversion. And he said, "I knew in that moment I did not want to spend the rest of my life there." He got it. He still got to spend 4 years there, but he's now, I think, 5, 6 years out and a senior in college. So he got it. There was a knowing, not a thinking, not a hoping, but a knowing. He broke every bone in his father's face, if you can imagine. But the father knew, and the father was able to forgive. Another true story. I just want to remind us that we're made in the image and likeness of God, and that there is love past all these experiences. So there are times that we go astray. So some years ago, a fraternity was doing their intake on their freshmen. They were doing a little hazing, and it turned rather tragic, for the pledges were being taught humility and obedience. They were taught to respect the decisions of their seniors. So they were lined up in the middle of a road on a knoll. So cars came up over the knoll and down over the hill, and there were stripes, yellow stripes, and these pledges were asked to stand on the stripes and to remain there until a senior said jump, and then they could leave. So a car did indeed go over the hill, and the senior said jump, and all but one pledge jumped, and one froze, just froze right there, was unable to move, and the car hit them and killed them. Now you can imagine how many lives in that moment were changed. How many lives, from the driver to those who witnessed it, to the family, to the mother, to the father of this young man. Years went by, and the mother spent time hating, condemning, wishing this young man to have a horrible life, to experience as much pain as she did. And one day, the young man who had been unable to return to college, unable to hold down a job, unable to succeed in life because he felt so bad for driving this car and hitting this young man and killing him. He was living in the slums, having a pretty ugly life. A knock on the door, and the mother was standing there. And she said, "I've come and I'm asking your forgiveness. I'm asking your forgiveness for the way I have been feeling, for all the hate that I had, for all that I wished for you to experience. I'm asking for your forgiveness." So it took the young man a bit of time to get over that. But he was feeling a sense of relief with this. He was feeling a sense of forgiveness with this. And so he was able to move forward, to forgive himself, to experience the love that was available to him. And so we all have the opportunity to receive the goodness and the grace. Whether we've taken all of the inheritance and gone out and squandered it, or if we stayed home trying to be the good one, trying to look good, trying to be good. For in truth, we are always loved. In truth, there is always love for us to receive. And so often we think about it, and we want it to be, and we believe it's possible. But it's about opening our hearts. So I invite you this moment to breathe, to open your heart. Allow those thoughts that you have in your mind to drop those 18 inches into the heart. To breathe in the love of God. To breathe in the divine love of the masculine. To experience the goodness and the grace. And while you're here in that heart space, if there's anything that you're ready to forgive, of your earthly father, of yourself, let it happen. Just let it happen. Let that forgiveness wash over you. Just like a gentle rain washing over us. Cleansing, refreshing, invigorating us. And we know all is well. all is well. The divine masculine watches out for us, looks for us, calls for the fatted calf and the coat and all the goodness to celebrate your willingness. God has such faith in us. He's given us free will. He's given us love. She's given us strength. She's given us compassion. There is an energy and a grace that washes over this land. And we receive it in the name and through the power of the Christ. Amen.
Always agree with the rules of the kingdom. Sometimes it's borders I needed to cross, and I had to learn that the blessing of freedom sometimes felt like gain, sometimes felt like loss. My Father's house, built with devotion, built to protect, with a heart to provide. My Father's house, full of emotion. Sometimes I laugh with tears in my eyes. The wind's blowing hard, the darkness is falling. I've lost my direction, don't know which way to go, but out of that darkness, in the heart of the kingdom, a feast was preparing for my return home. My Father's house, built with devotion, built to protect, with a heart to provide. My Father's house, full of emotion. Sometimes I laugh with tears in my eyes. I'm looking back on yesterday's stories. And now I look past, beyond who's to blame. I know love was there in all situations, and I can find peace calling his name. My Father's love, built with devotion, built to protect, with a heart to provide. My Father's house, full of emotion. Sometimes I laugh with tears in my eyes. Sometimes I laugh, tears in my eyes. My Father's